The lighting for the bed, starting with the pendant lights we have here. So typically in bedrooms, it's ideal to have bedside lighting that the end user can use while they're waking up, when they're going to bed, something soft along beside the bed. And so with this small space, not having the luxury of both sides of the bed, we ensured to still install a bedside light, as it adds extra function and extra satisfaction, extra use to this space. And one of our philosophies happens to be the blend of beauty and function. And so in selecting the specific light piece, we thought about installing something that also added some beauty to the space. So even when the light, it's still a feature in the space. Then next we have the cove lighting behind the bed head. This was primarily added for beauty and awe in the space. So because our clients indicated that they wanted a space where their guests could enjoy elevated living for a few days, for a few weeks, and even they themselves, they could come here and enjoy some time away from the busy life, we ensured to use lighting not just for lighting the space, but also as a psychological booster. So it adds that feeling of satisfaction that helps you unwind better and rest in the space. The next one we have here is the lighting that is hidden in the wall niche. So once again, we created that primarily to light up that space, but also to add visual appeal to the space. And in all of these lights, especially the hidden lights, we selected the warm light intentionally to ensure that the space feels cozy, warm, inviting, and perfect for relaxation, as opposed to using cold lighting. Moving to the ceiling, when we were invited into this space, we had 3 lights in the ceiling, one here, one in the middle, and one at the end. So 2 of those lights fell right above the bed, with one right above the head of the bed. When we are positioning ceiling lighting, we are intentional to move them away from the head of the bed, because when you're trying to sleep or just lie down on your bed and rest, having the light right above you increases dissatisfaction and doesn't encourage rest. So we intentionally reconfigured the ceiling lighting and created 4 points away from the head of the bed. So that is a pro tip for creating a restful bedroom if you're doing up your own space. When it comes to the particular fitting that we selected for the ceiling lights, we went through a selection process of elimination until we went with this one. Let's get into it. So we have these 3 light options here, and we'll be going through them one after the other till we finally get to the last one which we selected, and we will find out why we selected this particular light. The first option here is this flat round ceiling light. This is one of the most commonly used lighting in residential spaces, and it's mostly because of its affordability, and it's probably just more widely accessible. One of the major problems with this light is that it's flat. And so if you look closely, you will see that it has a little recess, but it's almost flat. And when you have flat lighting, they have glare. So there's nothing stopping the light from shining down in full force. And so it's a lot of glare. So when you have this in your ceiling, what comes down is harsh lighting because there is no recess to diffuse the light. Once we have a residential space or a space that is tailored towards rest and unwinding, we don't go with these flat lights. Then this one is a POP light that goes into the ceiling, and this is, I would say, a more preferred option, but we'll still go into why it wasn't the selected option. So if you look closely, you will see that this has more recess and the light is more recessed. The yellow point is where the light is and it's more recessed. However, why this doesn't go as first place is because of the surrounding material. So we found from our research that the darker the surrounding of the light of the recess point, the better the diffusion is. So when you have this light, it shines, but it doesn't have sufficient material around it to help the light to be a soft glow. So while the light here is not as harsh as the first option, it's still a bit harsh because the surrounding material here is this silver lining here, which is still light. So while this is cute and still decent for an option, we didn't go with this because it's not the best for diffused light. Moving to the winner here, looking at this is basically everything we just described. The light is much more recessed than the first two, and so when the light shines, it travels this distance before it goes out, and so that naturally helps the light to come out in a softer way as opposed to being harsh when it comes out. And then when it comes to the inner lining, you have this almost black lining. So we notice that black surfaces absorb light, and so the darker the inner lining of your lighting, the better the diffusion of the light. So when selecting your ceiling light, so you want to select something that is as recessed as possible and something that has a dark surrounding surface before the light comes out. It basically helps your light to come out softer, more diffuse, and when you take pictures in that type of space, you notice the difference clearly. This particular one will cast harsh shadows, and this particular one will give you a softer light finish. So coming to the TV console, we incorporated soft lighting and we went beyond the warm lighting which we used around the space to golden lighting, and this was intentional to create a glow in this particular space. So the gold lighting is not as bright as this warm lighting, and so it's quite functional, especially in the evenings. If you're lying down on your bed and you don't want the room completely dark, you can put this one on and it just creates a golden glow in the room that is sufficient to go to bed or do some light work while lying on your bed. And so we were intentional about selecting that light to create a diversification of lighting in the space, so everything is not warm and everything is not white. So I think we're kind of used to having light in our TV consoles, but you can go the extra mile to be intentional about the color of the lighting based on what you want to use the space for. Here in the kitchen, we have played with hidden lighting as well, and sometimes lighting is the hidden ingredients, the secret sauce that takes a space from basic to interesting. And so we knew that we needed to play with lighting here, especially with the limited space we had, to play with the elements that will bounce back on all the materials to create an interesting space. And so we have hidden lighting under the top cabinet, which is generally standard practice, but we went beyond that to add below the base cabinet under the marble top to add that extra unexpected feel and interest and intrigue to the space. And so this is actually, am I allowed to say, this is one of my favorite features in this particular space, because it really does highlight and accentuate the beauty of the kitchen. So lighting can be your secret sauce. Use it intentionally. Okay, so here in the bathroom, we used light intentionally in this space, not just for the practical function of seeing, but for the function of beauty. And that is something that's debatable in design circles, but we believe that when designing a space, sometimes the client wants to see function, but they want to see something more that makes all the expenditure feel worth it. And so bringing in these hidden lights in the warm color into this hidden nook and around the mirror just added an extra elevated feel to the space. Like, it's not basic, it's interesting, there's something more here. And so we are quite intentional with that in our spaces, and we did that in this bathroom. Here in the balcony, we have installed different types of lighting. We have the POP lighting and we have the pendant lighting, the 3-in-1 pendant lighting. For the 3-in-1 pendant lighting, we actually customize what we have here. So the lights come separately on their own, but for this particular one, we punctured the holes in the black feature on the ceiling and we inserted 3 of them to create this piece here. So for this particular space, the pendant lighting is not necessarily acting in a functional capacity to light up the space, as we have abundant natural lighting from the environment. However, we know that lighting can be a statement piece in a space. It can function as art, and that's what we hoped for in this space, to use something that adds to the beauty, adds to the texture, adds to the ambience of this particular space. For the ceiling lighting, we used the same recessed POP lights that we used in the interiors of the space, and these are the same lights that give us a soft glow, a diffuse lighting finish during the day and at night.